Chapter 13 of Cranford by Elizabeth Cleghorn Gaskell into the public domain. Chapter 13. Stopped Payment. The very Tuesday morning on which Mr. Johnson was going to show the fashions, the postwoman brought 2 letters to the house. I say the postwoman, but I should say the postman's wife. He was a lame shoemaker, a very clean, honest man, much respected in the town, but he never brought the letters round except on unusual occasions, such as Christmas Day or Good Friday, and on those days the letters, which should have been delivered at 8 in the morning, did not make their appearance until 2 or 3 in the afternoon, for every one liked poor Thomas, and gave him a welcome on these festive occasions. He used to say he was welly stawed with eating, for there were 3 or 4 houses where nought would serve him but he must share in their breakfast, and by the time he had done his last breakfast, he came to some other friend who was beginning dinner; but come what might in the way of temptation, Tom was always sober, civil, and smiling, and, as Miss Jenkyns used to say, it was a lesson in patience that she doubted not would call out that precious quality in some minds, where, but for Thomas, it might have lain dormant and undiscovered. Patience was certainly very dormant in Miss Jenkyns's mind. She was always expecting letters, and always drumming on the table till the postwoman had called or gone past. On Christmas Day and Good Friday she drummed from breakfast till church, from church time till 2 o'clock, unless when the fire wanted stirring, when she invariably knocked down the fire-irons, and scolded Miss Matty for it. But equally certain was the hearty welcome and the good dinner for Thomas, Miss Jenkyns standing over him like a bold dragoon, questioning him as to his children, what they were doing, what school they went to, upbraiding him if another was likely to make its appearance, but sending even the little babies the shilling and the mince-pie which was her gift to all the children, with half a crown in addition for both father and mother. The post was not half of so much consequence to dear Miss Matty, but not for the world would she have diminished Thomas's welcome and his dole; though I could see that she felt rather shy over the ceremony, which would have been regarded by Miss Jenkyns as a glorious opportunity for giving advice and benefiting her fellow creatures. Miss Matty would steal the money all in a lump into his hand, as if she were ashamed of herself. Miss Jenkyns gave him each individual coin separate, with a "There, that's for yourself, that's for Jenny," etc. Miss Matty would even beckon Martha out of the kitchen while he ate his food, and once, to my knowledge, winked at its rapid disappearance into a blue cotton handkerchief. Miss Jenkyns scolded him if he did not leave a clean plate, however heaped it might have been, and gave an injunction with every mouthful. I have wandered a long way from the 2 letters that awaited us on the breakfast table that Tuesday morning. Mine was from my father. Miss Matty's was printed. My father's was just a man's letter; I mean it was very dull, and gave no information beyond that he was well, that they had had a good deal of rain, and that trade was very stagnant, and that there were very many disagreeable rumours afloat. He then asked me if I knew whether Miss Matty still retained her shares in the Town and Country Bank, as there were very unpleasant reports about it, though nothing more than he had always foreseen, and had prophesied to Miss Jenkyns years ago, when she would invest their little property in it; the only unwise step that clever woman had ever taken, to his knowledge; the only time she ever acted against his advice, I knew. However, if anything had gone wrong, of course I was not to think of leaving Miss Matty while it could be of any use, etc., etc. "Who is your letter from, my dear? Mine is a very civil invitation, signed Edwin Wilson, asking me to attend an important meeting of the shareholders of the Town and Country Bank, to be held in Drumble, on Thursday the 21st. I am sure it is very attentive of them to remember me." I did not like to hear of this important meeting, for though I did not know much about business, I feared it confirmed what my father said. However, I thought ill news always came fast enough, so I resolved to say nothing about my alarm, and merely told her that my father was well, and sent his kind regards to her. She kept turning over and admiring her letter. At last she spoke. "I remember their sending one to Deborah just like this, but that I did not wonder at, for everybody knew she was so clear-headed. I am afraid I could not help them much; indeed, if they came to accounts, I should be in quite the way, for I could never do sums in my head. Deborah, I know, rather wished to go, and went so far as to order a new bonnet for the occasion; but when the time came she had a bad cold, so they sent her a very polite account of what they had done. Chosen a director, I think it was. Do you think they want me to help them choose a director? I am sure I should choose your father at once." "My father has no shares in the bank," said I. Oh, no! I remember. He objected very much to Deborah's buying any, I believe. But she was quite the woman of business, and always judged for herself; and here, you see, they have paid 8% all these years. It was a very uncomfortable subject to me, with my half-knowledge, so I thought I would change the conversation, and asked what time she thought we had better go and see the fashions. "Well, my dear," she said, "the thing is this: it is not etiquette to go till after 12; but then, you see, all Cranford will be there, and one does not like to be too curious about dress and trimmings and caps, with all the world looking on. It is never genteel to be over-curious on these occasions. Deborah had the knack of always looking as if the latest fashion was nothing new to her, a manner she had caught from Lady Arley, who did see all the new modes in London, you know. So I thought we would just slip down, for I do want this morning, soon after breakfast, half a pound of tea, and then we could go up and examine the things at our leisure, and see exactly how my new silk gown must be made. And then, after 12, we could go with our minds disengaged, and free from thoughts of dress." We began to talk of Miss Matty's new silk gown. I discovered that it would be really the first time in her life that she had had to choose anything of consequence for herself, for Miss Jenkyns had always been the more decided character, whatever her taste might have been, and it is astonishing how such people carry the world before them by the mere force of will. Miss Matty anticipated the sight of the glossy folds with as much delight as if the 5 sovereigns, set apart for the purchase, could buy all the silks in the shop; and, remembering my own loss of 2 hours in a toy shop before I could tell on what wonder to spend a silver threepence, I was very glad that we were going early, that dear Miss Matty might have the leisure for the delights of perplexity. If a happy sea green could be met with, the gown was to be sea green; if not, she inclined to maize, and I to silver grey, and we discussed the requisite number of breadths until we arrived at the shop door. We were to buy the tea, select the silk, and then clamber up the iron corkscrew stairs that led into what was once a loft, though now a fashion show-room. The young men at Mr Johnson's had on their best looks, and their best cravats, and pivoted themselves over the counter with surprising activity. They wanted to show us upstairs at once, but on the principle of business first and pleasure afterwards, we stayed to purchase the tea. Here Miss Matty's absence of mind betrayed itself. If she was made aware that she had been drinking green tea at any time, she always thought it her duty to lie awake half through the night afterward. I have known her to take it in ignorance many a time without such effects, and consequently green tea was prohibited at the house; yet to-day she herself asked for the obnoxious article, under the impression that she was talking about the silk. However, the mistake was soon rectified, and then the silks unrolled in good truth. By this time the shop was pretty well filled, for it was Cranford market day, and many of the farmers and country people from the neighbourhood round came in, sleeking down their hair, and glancing shyly about, from under their eyelids, as anxious to take back some notion of the unusual gaiety to the mistress or the lasses at home, and yet feeling that they were out of place among the smart shopmen and gay shawls and summer prints. One honest-looking man, however, made his way up to the counter at which we stood, and boldly asked to look at a shawl or two. The other country folk confined themselves to the grocery side, but our neighbour was evidently too full of some kind intention towards mistress, wife, or daughter, to be shy, and it soon became a question with me, whether he or Miss Matty would keep their shopman the longest time. He thought each shawl a more beautiful than the last, and as for Miss Matty, she smiled and sighed over each fresh bale that was brought out; one colour set off another, and the heap together would, as she said, make even the rainbow look poor. "I am afraid," said she, hesitating, "whichever I choose I shall wish I had taken another. Look at this lovely crimson; it would be so warm in winter. But spring is coming on, you know. I wish I could have a gown for every season," said she, dropping her voice, as we all did in Cranford whenever we talked of anything we wished for but could not afford. "However," she continued in a louder and more cheerful tone, "it would give me a great deal of trouble to take care of them if I had them, so I think I'll only take one. But which must it be, my dear?" And now she hovered over a lilac with yellow spots, while I pulled out a quiet sage green that had faded into insignificance among the more brilliant colours, but which was nevertheless a good silk in its humble way. Our attention was called off to our neighbour. He had chosen a shawl of about 30 shillings value, and his face looked broadly happy, under the anticipation, no doubt, of the pleasant surprise he would give to some Molly or Jenny at home. He had tugged a leathern purse out of his breeches pocket, and had offered a £5 note in payment for the shawl, and for some parcels which had been brought round to him from the grocery counter; and it was just at this point that he attracted our notice.